Wow, alright, chapter 1049 was crazy. I think there was a wide variety of reactions and a lot of split expectations. But let me just say, somehow I predicted this chapter and I was still wrong. Like, I was genuinely surprised 3 or 4 different times throughout the chapter. I personally enjoy these kinds of chapters too because it helps so much with theories and ideas, and there's so much to talk about, and you could probably see that in my live reaction stream. It was like, these kinds of chapters are really fun to talk about with you all. That being said, this video will contain chapter 1049 spoilers, so if you're not caught up, get caught up. And if you're new to my channel, the way I view the world is by making connections. So let me connect you to my vision, the ParVision. Okay, so going back to what I meant by like, I was wrong and right at the same time, like I knew that Oda would definitely continue the fight, but there would be a Kaido flashback, and a significant one, but I did not expect the context of what we got. I also said on a few streams that I thought Kaido was going to get knocked down at least one time, but I also did not expect it to look like this, to the point where in several polls it was nearly 50-50 split in whether Kaido is completely done by the end of the chapter, and my expectation was that Kaido would be forced to finally exhaust any hidden power-ups he had left, and while being pushed back and possibly knocked out, that's when we get the final full flashback for Kaido, resulting in a situation after the flashback where Kaido uses his last move, which would be the extremely taxing awakening that has been the last resort for nearly every awakening user we have seen this arc at least, also to follow the primary antagonist pattern of using an awakening at the last part of the fight. That being said, everything is kind of up in the air still, or rather spiraling down to the ground, because there was so much in this chapter, it's hard to say definitively what Oda has in store for the next chapter. But you know it's big because it's perfectly timed with the break week to further heighten the suspense of the 1050 drop. So that being said, let's finally jump into the chapter. The title for chapter 1049 right now is The World You Wish For, and this is a very appropriate title. And that being said, I'm going to run through this chapter differently than usual and run through some of the less important things of the chapters first. So truthfully, I usually look at the chapter cover more intently, but the major thing to think about here is who could be setting the book on fire. I think the primary answer would be the Sanji fan Pudding. It would be crazy if it was somehow Pedro. But there is a world where it could be the Blackbeard pirates, but would they want to set them free? Or maybe there's something else within the book that they would want? And if it were Crocodile and Mr. One, they shouldn't really know of the weakness of the book or set things on fire. It's kind of interesting. And so going through all of that, we get to the vanilla answer of Reiju and Ichiji, which honestly makes the most sense, but then also it's kind of weird because then why would we get the silhouette when it could have just been straightforward? And as you may already know, when it comes to shadowy images in One Piece, I'm on high alert because of my Toon Force Shadows video, which, by the way, if you haven't seen yet, you should definitely check it out. But for this chapter cover, I think we just kind of have to wait and see what happens on the next cover. But anyways, the next minor thing to get out of the way would be this CP0 agent that I dislike for being so passive while Dripper Scarfino, aka the dopest CP0 member in probably all of history, took one for the team. But so to me, it makes the most sense that this CP0 agent is escaping Onigashima, finally jumping ship back to the world government ships, which apparently are right on the border of Wano. What's interesting here is that it seems like the Gorosei are able to relay information to this CP0 agent, but it kind of feels like the reverse is not true, like it's a one-way communication stream. So maybe we'll get another Gorosei scene where they're updated about Luffy's sun god Nika form, and then they escalate the priority of Wano in the world government eyes. And that's where it gets a little hairy because we don't know who's already en route to Wano on those government ships. But if the world government is spread out taking care of the warlords and apparently whatever's happening in Alabasta, and last we saw was that Kainu was saying no one is going to Wano, what if there's a situation where due to the extreme necessity to shut down Wano, Akainu is forced to go himself? It's probably not likely, but if the CP0 relays their message, then we might actually get an admiral presence if there weren't already admirals en route. And the next minor thing is it seems like a lot of people were right about the water from Raizo's scroll, which is essentially Zunisha's bathwater bottled up, like some of those Twitch streamers that I heard that were selling their things. But anyways, it actually did leak out of the island. But what really surprised me, and I kind of forgot to think about, was the fact that the water could wipe out the flame clouds, which is kind of interesting because then it's almost like redundant because Kaido was gonna get clapped anyways, so the result would have been the same. But we did get an update on everyone inside the castle, and one minor thing, and I'm sorry if this is too harsh on Beppo, but he is a polar bear. Polar bears are OP in the water, like really insane. I can get him dying because of the global warming heat fire from Kazumbo earlier, but like Beppo and Kawamatsu could be saving people right now. Like at least Beppo should be doing things, right? Right, Oda? Right? Thank you. Like, I want to like Beppo. Just give me a reason to, please. And so this segues to two other minor parts. So the idea was that Orochi would be washed by the water and his fire would be put out, but it seems like the majority of the water already passed the second floor, not reaching where Orochi is, but I still think Orochi awakens. But anyways, the last minor thing, which is actually a major thing, is that our boy Momo did it. After nearly 25 chapters of him trying to get the flame clouds going, he did it. And the way he did it reminded me of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man trying to get the webs out for the first time. It was pretty funny on stream when I realized that. But this is a W, a definite win. Our boy is growing up, and by the end of the chapter, we see he managed to safely land Onigashima. So let's take a moment to celebrate this. I mean, I tweeted out this panel where when Momo first met Kaido, his exact words were, "I will one day carry this nation on my shoulders." And that's exactly what we got. So I just want to put it out there, Momo, I'm proud of you. Oda did not do you any favors. Momo definitely had probably the most traumatic childhood in all of One Piece history. And he made it, he pulled it through. But okay, now that we got all of that out of the way, let's now get to the first major part, the flashback. So let me touch back on what I said at the start of the video. I knew we were due for a Kaido flashback, but most of this flashback was not what I was expecting. Like, Kaido was traded as a celestial tribute and was in the Navy, and him being captured so many times was because he was hungry? I mean, some of the contents of this flashback were expected and kind of already understood, and we more or less got the context of how things progressed for Kaido. But yeah, the other parts were like, wait, what? 8-year-old Robin had a higher bounty than 13-year-old Kaido? Like, I'm just joking. That's not Kaido slander, but yeah. So if you were on my stream, you already had an idea of the kinds of things I was expecting to be answered with the Kaido flashback. I primarily want to know the context of what brought Kaido to Wano, where and how he got the knowledge that seems like he has of Joy Boy, and also another important context is how he got Yamato's fruit and how he wanted to use it. He said he worked really hard for it. What does that mean for Kaido? And there's several other things, but I'm gonna put a pin in this sentiment for the end of the video. So now walking through the flashback itself, young Kaido is a vibe. Like, that is an MC aesthetic if I've seen one. This whole first page of Kaido's flashback was kind of an insane drop. One new mystery is where in the world is Vodka Kingdom? But overall, this page laid out the parallels for Kaido amongst all the Yonko. Like, well, young Big Mom had a very similar destructive upbringing, where due to their actions they were both exiled to the Navy, and yeah, technically that's the case for Big Mom because Mother Karama wanted to trade Big Mom into the Navy, which isn't too different than what the King of Vodka wanted to do. And by the way, is that his title? Because that's honestly a dope title. On top of that, Kaido's hometown was too poor to properly provide a celestial tribute, similar to Whitebeard, thus creating a predisposed antagonistic nature towards the celestial dragons and the world government. This first page would have been gold for the Yonko series that I have on my channel, where the starting video tries to extrapolate information about the Yonkos through their connections to each other and to rocks, and this is an amazing ammo for that thought experiment. What's actually crazy is that Vodka Kingdom seemingly 46 years ago gained a seat at the Reverie by trading Kaido in, which is also interesting because when Kaido had a wanted poster, it was only 70 million, which does that mean it's all it really costs to make it into the Reverie? Probably not. It's just a weird considering how valuable or threatening Kaido seemed to be. But another thought here is if this kingdom joined the Reverie, are they still a part of it? Could we possibly do a process of elimination to figure out which current kingdom was the Vodka Kingdom? Which, yeah, as you expected, I did. And the best guess I have right now would be Rashwan Kingdom, because the king's name is Beer the Sixth. And at the bottom of the wiki, it says how beer is second to vodka in alcoholic popularity in Russia. And it seemed like the nation has a Russian thematic. So it might be that it used to be Vodka Kingdom. And so that's just a thought, but coming from the Vodka Kingdom, it makes sense why Kaido drinks so much, right? But okay, moving to the next panel, we get the context of Kaido's relation with the Navy. He would break free and get caught on purpose because he was hungry, which apparently leads him to end up on Pirate Island 44 years ago, where at the time this is Rox's territory. 15-year-old Kaido acts like a menace and bullies people, and that warrants Whitebeard to essentially recruit Kaido, but noting that Rox took notice of Kaido, and then us jumping to what seems like the image of what Rox's ship looks like, and let me just say, That ship looks fancy, like super dapper, like royalty. Like the Rocks pirates were riding in style. It almost makes you wonder if Tom built the Oro Jackson and Rocks' ship. And then we get to this panel. And if you were in my stream, or in any stream to be honest, there was quite the confusion about this panel. So let's play the game. Who's that Pokemon? I'll be honest, the more I thought about it, the less sure I became. I mean, okay, in the next page there is this person, and I'm pretty sure that's Big Mom, right? She has a hat on, and that hat could be the hat in the silhouette, but these pages are separate, so maybe this person is a different person. And then also the shape of the cross-looking thing that looks like the brim of the hat could be Whitebeard's mustache too. But honestly, my first impression when I saw that image was, isn't that Luffy? I mean, it could also be a straw hat. I mean, obviously it's not Luffy, but like, isn't it weird for it to be Whitebeard or Big Mom? Because it's like, why put it in a silhouette that looks like neither of them in terms of body shape and size? And why would this be any other random Rocks crew member? And considering this is about Kaido on the Rocks Pirates, we don't see Rocks in the entire flashback. And who could be ordering Kaido like this? I want to see the official translations for this panel, because if it's phrased as a command, I might think it's Rocks himself, which is why it's a silhouette. But doesn't that mean Rocks also had a hat? I mean, we've never seen him with a hat. Also, does that mean Rocks is a short king like Shanks and Luffy? Because it looks pretty short. And it's such a small detail, it makes you wonder why Oda even did this to us, and why he put this here now, right after my Toon Force Shadow video where I'm literally analyzing every shadowy figure, so I just have to add this one to the list. And we didn't even talk about this part yet, but we get to see the before and after of Kaido going to God Valley. But you know what's really interesting? In every page of the flashback, we get Kaido on every strip, except in the after God Valley strip. Why couldn't Oda show us Kaido here? I mean, I don't see a real addition to his appearance other than facial hair. Does that mean Kaido was inspired to grow facial hair because of God Valley? I mean, at this point, I'll take what I can get about God's Valley, right? Like, God's Valley could have just been a Davy backfight for all we know. But also, something I want to point out is that I disregarded this part to a certain extent, because these lines claiming that there was either infighting or the Rocks Pirates lost because of Garp. And I disregarded this because, again, these are conversations of people who are not involved at God Valley. I mean, like, I personally don't have a solid theory about what exactly happened. Actually, you know what? I'm pretty poll hungry. I just discovered polls yesterday on stream, so I'm going to link a bunch of Twitter polls in the description box. So let me know what you guys think what actually happened based on this flashback. Which side do you think is right? And then touching on this line, apparently Kaido left, and this line is really weird because we don't know if Big Mom is saying that about Kaido at God Valley. Does that mean Kaido ran away from God Valley? Or is this referring to Kaido leaving Pirate Island? I think it's referring to God Valley, but this is where the timeline gets a little confused. And so on that note, before we get to the last leg of the flashback, I want to put out one other critical take that I had. I personally did not like how jumpy the flashback was. We had very little idea of when and where each jump was and where it took us. That being said, thank you Direglus for organizing this for me in the Discord. It looks like in total we get roughly 10 time skips in the span of 4 pages. And the most confusing part to me is the G and H section. The reason why I'm confused is because the introduction of Higurashi, was Higurashi off of Wano when she proposed taking over Wano, or was this on Wano? And all of this because the next panel takes us to what seems to be a completed Onigashima castle, which we know was built by the carpenter on Wano for Kaido specifically, and this next part might not be a separate time, but it's definitely after Odin was killed because Yamato mentioned Joy Boy, which had to be from Odin's journal. Which then takes us to the loop quote of Kaido explaining who he thinks Joy Boy is, and we'll get there in a second. But before we switch into the 5th gear here, you're probably like, ParVision, why are you being so nitpicky of the timeline of the flashback? So I'll tell you, and it's a great time to announce this actually. So I will be having streams every Saturday night, every week, called The Voice of All Things, where it's essentially a brainstorming session where I start discussing a specific topic, or we bounce ideas back and forth, and I'll explain more about the stream on the stream itself. But anyways, this weekend I'm going to be starting a conversation around the timeline of Wano, like from ancient times to current times. And I want to do this because I think it might give context about Shimotsuki Village, where Zoro trained as a kid. What's interesting about that village was that it was founded 54 years ago by Shimotsuki Kozuburo, but that timeline just happens to coincide with the Kurozumi hunt. So it might be that there was a huge exodus of Kurozumi escaping Wano at that time, and that might explain Higurashi's connection with not just Kaido, but also rocks and specifically Shiki as she showed his face. And now the implication with this understanding of the flashback is that actually takes away from Kaido's character, in my opinion, because that would insinuate that Higurashi was the reason Kaido went to Wano in the first place, as that was part of her proposition. I would have liked it more if Kaido chose Wano for a specific reason besides the ones he listed out when he mentioned the new Onigashima project. But now, to get to the cherry on top of this chapter review, we're going to be talking about the elephant in the room. I don't know how many times I said that this arc, I'll never know, but in this case the elephant is not Zunisha, it's Kaido and Luffy's clash, which seems to have been at a relative stalemate going into the chapter, with Luffy gaining the upper hand as the fight goes on. Damn, I'm just full of puns today. But before we talk about the fight and the results, to tie back in what Kaido said at the start, Kaido said that Luffy will never be able to change the world. But then asks Luffy, wait, I said that, but what kind of world do you wish to make? Honestly, the dialogue is kind of reversed. It kind of would have made more sense if Kaido heard what Luffy said and then said what he said about Luffy not being able to do it. Anyways, Luffy responds while breaking through Kaido's magma dragon attack and hitting the actual physical body of Kaido. And his big response to the world that he wishes to make is a world where my friends can eat as much as they like. That's my kind of world. So the big question here, is this what Luffy's secret dream was this whole time? And I'll be honest, it kind of fits the bill. It is low-key goofy and childish, and Sabo says he wants to see the world and write a book about it, and Ace says he wants to be a great pirate that beats everyone else and gets the respect that he deserves. And so if Luffy responded to those two dreams with this dream, I could kind of understand the response that Ace and Sabo had. And in that same light, if this were Roger's dream and Whitebeard and Oden heard this, they'd probably say the same thing too and laugh. But I don't think this is the whole thing. I have a feeling this is a part or a piece of Luffy's dream, or more accurately, Luffy's real dream probably encompasses this. But I'm having a hard time figuring out the full scope of it. I mean, I recall Luffy having a similar realization on Dressrosa where Luffy wanted to free the people. I'll definitely be thinking about this more, but I feel like Luffy's true dream being dropped here isn't exactly where or when I'd expect us to find out. And the question that prompted Luffy's answer was, what world would he want to make? Not necessarily what is Luffy's dream or aspiration. And given Blackbeard's intro where Blackbeard says people's dreams never die and that was kind of the focus point then, I almost expect a mirrored situation where Blackbeard asks Luffy what his dream is and Luffy then tells us the real dream and it shocks Blackbeard. And us. And so all of that now brings us to the biggest contention point of this chapter, this fight. Is this how it ends? Was it actually just a ginormous, humongous punch? Bopping Kaido down, literally blitzing not just to the ground, but through the ground. Man hit the ground so hard he left a cartoony spiral imprint. And the craziest part is we do see Kaido's pupil go white, not just once, but twice. Once when Luffy's punch connects, and then after, Kaido regains it, and then loses it again after he hits the ground. And it's accompanied with Kaido completing the flashback by admitting to King that Joy Boy will be the person who can beat Kaido. And that also connects King's flashback of King saying his life belongs to Kaido as long as he stays the strongest, which kind of implies, by the way, that King would give his life to Joy Boy if they find him. And so I guess the big question here that's lighting the community on fire is this the end of Kaido? And I think I'm going to actually make a chapter 1050 prediction video, which not only talks about 1050, but also beyond that too. In my personal opinion, and I'm fine if I'm wrong, but I think Kaido is not defeated. Yes, I said I think Kaido will be getting back up. For many reasons. I think it's almost easier for Oda to have Kaido get back up rather than him being defeated here. I mean, first of all, again, Luffy was down like 4 times and got up even through death. And you want to convince me that Kaido gets downed 1 time and can't get back up? This is Kaido. Like, can we take a moment to recall Kaido's reception last chapter where he pulled out a magma dragon and most of us were like, how deep is Kaido's bag of tricks right now? Like, he has an infinite bag for these moves. And I don't think that sentiment just goes away after 1 chapter. But then again, mirroring Orochi last chapter, we get the Sky Balloons wishing for Kaido's demise. And also mirroring King's defeat. King lost a wing in his defeat, and the black wing is a symbol of the Lunarian race, it seems. And similarly, the horn is a definite mark of an Oni, and Kaido lost his left horn in this clash. but we don't have the narrator card declaring it as a victory or loss or whatever like we got in the previous fights on Wano, and even in this fight with Kaido versus Luffy. That being said though, all the commander fights ended with the card on the following chapter. Though Big Mom's situation was a little different. The final attack that put her out of the fight was immediately followed by the winner declaration card. So there's a lot that could happen with Kaido. But again, my feeling is that it's not over. As I mentioned before, another key indicator for Kaido to come back, in my opinion, is the flashback. Oda loves flashbacks, and this flashback felt like the appetizer to a more contextualized flashback of Kaido. The one that tells us what went wrong in Kaido's life, for example, what he attempted and what he failed at. Maybe even Kaido sympathizes with Luffy's answer here. We don't know yet. And so the chapter ends with Momo landing Onigashima outside of the Flower Capital, and this also lines up with the prediction that there's more to the fight because the anime opening gives the fight a setting more similar to this. And then there's the portrayal of Luffy here that's a little interesting, but what's really important here is that it feels like this fight should end with the rising of the new sun, and the dawn should come to complete the poetry of this fight. Also, I feel like this is not where Onigashima's final location is. There's still so many moving parts left in Wano, including the actual elephant in the room, which is Zunisha. Like, why is he here on Wano? Then there's the world government, and also keep in mind where all the commanders and Big Mom were sent after their fights. Aren't they on the ground of Wano? And then the last note Oda put of 20 years in the making, ... exclamation points. I feel like even that is vague. Ending this with an ellipses kind of feels like we're supposed to be left in suspense. And so to cap off this video, I would say I did like this chapter. I don't think it was my favorite chapter, but the energy and the emotions I had reading it, it definitely brought out a lot of thoughts and conversations. And at the end of the day, a chapter that can make you think and want to talk to friends is generally a good chapter. I always have faith either way Oda goes, he'd be able to execute on something that makes sense, I'm sure of it. But again, I think it makes less sense that Kaido loses here. And I will go into that and more in my predictions video. Oda is actually a menace for planning out to have this chapter end and drop right before a break week to send the community into a yet another spiral. That being said, I love break weeks as a One Piece content creator because it lets me comfortably focus on all of my theory videos, whereas in a normal week there's a small window of time where some of my videos get overshadowed by the chapter, or it's just less fun to talk about and given the meta of what's going on in the current manga. For example, all the videos spanning from my Conquer's Hockey video to the Brooks video to the Shanks video, those are all delayed because of chapter 1043 and how much that impacted the state of One Piece. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and spread the vision, the ParVision. And remember, on Saturdays, I will be hosting the Voice of All Things, and also ending each stream with a watch party viewing the latest One Piece episode, given we're getting Roof Piece and all the other crazy chapters after chapter 1000. Also, let me know what questions you have about this chapter and the future of Wano, because I will be making that predictions video. And if you want to support me making these videos and my theories, consider supporting me through Patreon, Twitch, or as a community member on YouTube. And so, like always, thank you for connecting with me, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you all on the next ParVision.